Hey, gun people! Part 3, Revolution, here we go. Smokey's still hanging out. Let me set this timer, Smokey, sorry. He's like, dude, why are you taking my phone? You don't need to be making calls. Alright, timer set. Got a 4th of July toast. And here we go. We ended on part 2. By the time the British got home to the town of Boston, the British army was completely surrounded because the word had spread. 3 weeks later, May 10th, 1775, Continental Congress had an emergency session, and they now need an army. And Ben Franklin attends the meeting. Remember, Ben Franklin got war up and down in England, so he's a patriot now. Full bore, forget England. Ben goes to see his son, William, who is the New England governor against the rebellion and loyal to the king. It's now father against son, and they must choose between country and blood, and they cannot agree. And his son picks England, and Ben picks America. And it's going to happen again. When we get into politics, and this country falls apart, and people are fighting for freedoms and against tyranny, there's going to be liberal children who are brainwashed by the government to think government is good, going against their parents who are trying to fight for their children and grandchildren's future of freedom. But they won't see it, just like they didn't see it. Lots of families are broken and must choose between patriots and the loyalists. These are men of destiny for this country. After bloodshed in Lexington and Concord, Benedict Arnold, at the age of 15, he fought with the French in any war. Benedict convinces he should be sent to take a British stronghold. Ethan Allen from Connecticut has his own militia, 2,000. And they head for Fort, I can't say this name, Ticonderoga. Ticonderoga. I can't remember the pronunciation. Both meet 30 miles from the target. Arnold says he's in charge, and Allen laughs. Again, power. You get military forces, you get military commander. Who's in charge? Who's got the most experience? Power kind of attracts certain types of people, and certain people move toward power. So Arnold accepts second in command to Allen and the Green Mountain Boys that Allen brought with him. On May 10th, 83 Mountain Boys and 50 Massachusetts militia men sneak up on the fort and the British and are surprised and taken in minutes. Now all the arms belong to the rebels. Woohoo! Go Patriots! Another small battle. They went, they defeated. Now remember, you got to remember, this is the biggest, strongest, most military army in the world. The British Empire was huge. But you know what? They did everything just like the U.S. We got our fingers in everybody's business trying to spread our troops everywhere about our own place. Britain did the same damn thing. They had all their troops every damn where, and they couldn't defend their own home, and they started losing every place they had because you just can't put enough forces when you try to be a tyrannical government over everybody. And the feds are doing it now, and it's going to continue through history even after this. So, in Philly, the Continental Congress meet in what will later be called Independence Hall. The 13 colonies unite and make an army paid for by taxes. So they finally get their army. Why? We didn't need one before. Now we need one. Why do we need one now, Rick? Because people went to sleep and they were living under tyranny for so long, they finally got fed up. Gee, Rick, that kind of sounds like where we are now. Bingo! Buy yourself a drink. On me. George Washington was appointed as the first commander-in-chief of the New Continental Army. He has the money, he has a lot of money, and he has nothing to gain by this. And because of this revolution, he has everything to lose. He was a smart man. He was good in England's eyes. He had money. He didn't need to do this. He did it for the right reason. He did it for freedom. He did it because he knew it was the right thing, and this country would be what it was because of what they did. And what we've done now is just thrown away and made a big disaster of it, but that's another story. We'll get to that later. In 1775, General Gage is fired since he lost the fort. 3 generals were sent to replace him. One of them was General Howe. He opposed the war. In Boston, you can hear the fireworks starting off in the background, 4th of July. Good. Boston, in June, the British want to break the hold in Boston and plan to head to Bunker Hill. The mission leaks. 1,200 militiamen, those damn crazy right-wing conspiracy patriots. 1,200 militiamen beat the British to Bunker Hill. This was the first full battle of the Revolution. The British try and march up the hill and intimidate the militia, and they are beat back twice. 3 hours later, the rebels run out of ammo and have to leave. Then the British take the hill, but the British losses were 1,000 dead and wounded. The rebels only lost 250. The Congress sent an olive branch and requested the colonies autonomy from the British Empire. But it will take weeks for that message to reach England. Remember, we didn't have email, all that crap. You had to go by boats or whatever. So George Washington heads to Boston. He's not happy to find a drunk, unorganized militia. He gave out discipline because when he got back, they were all drunk. He gave out discipline of 30 lashings and being drugged by a rope behind a wagon. That's discipline. Nowadays, that would be, they'd be wanting, Your Honor, time out. George Washington, I need to go to my safe space because I'm feeling stressed. Freaking pussy-ass country. Only 9 rounds of powder were given each man. No supplies. Men were serving 1 year enlistment. George Washington has to get his army in shape to take on the most experienced and feared army in the world, with people with no experience, very little money, and a brand new army. Man, the odds were so against us, and we came out and won. And look what we did with the victory. Look at the country now. All these men that gave up what they gave up for this country, and look where we let it go. Gage has 7,000 soldiers surrounding, Gage has 7,000 surrounded by General George Washington, 16,000. On October 11th, Gage was dismissed and sent home. In London, King George says no olive branch and now calls it war. Parliament votes and war is approved. They're pissed off at the Patriots. And you know what? The Minutemen Patriots, you know what they said? Come and take it. Washington issues an order to accept blacks into the militia. And the British says, we'll take all the blacks. And over 30,000 blacks changed sides and went to the British side. January 1776, George Washington raised the new flag of the Grand Union in 13 stripes. The same day they get the news, the king orders to crush the rebellion by any means. Not a good time, man. There's a lot of people put their lives on the line for this great country and all the good we did. And look what we're doing with it. We're giving it to freaking pink-panted liberal, crying, whining, safe place, wanting to wear a freaking helmet in the bathroom when you eat so you don't poke yourself in the ear. We got a bunch of idiots running this country. March 2nd, Washington issued orders. Anyone running from the enemy will be shot. And then he takes up high ground to shoot them if they run. On March 5th, the British wake up to the 6th anniversary of the Boston Massacre. 20 cannons on high ground aimed at the British. Not one shot was fired by Washington, and the British abandoned the city and ran like the pink-panty redcoats they were. That's my time here. All right, 6 minutes. Hopefully I can get through this number 3. They do not know yet that the king has 33,000 British troops coming to crush them. And they're tired of being embarrassed by these pesky Americans. That's what the British people were saying. New York was key for both sides. That would be the battleground to see who wins. New York was divided. Half loyalists, that would be the liberals. Half patriots, that would be the crazy right-wing conspiracy. So like today, liberals who wanted governments and patriots who wanted freedom. In December 1775, Thomas Paine, a name you'll hear again, a radical, writes a 46-page pamphlet of common sense. And he calls it common sense, and now it's time to see the time of the Continental Union, spelling out about America and making it a democratic and a republic making of revolutions. The book goes viral, and people believe in the writings and flock to join the army. All right, go Mr. Paine. The British arrive in New York Harbor with 130 warships and over 25,000 troops. This huge show of force and intimidation they stage in a harbor. So as you look in a harbor, all you see is British white sails and military and redcoats. This was done specifically to intimidate your enemy. What a sight. The most powerful standing army on earth, bringing that power to you, you pesky rebel Americans, and they make a show for intimidation and try to scare off the rebels. Well, it didn't work. Washington is in New York. George Washington is in New York this time, defending New York. It will be the greatest test that he's ever taken. In Philly, Ben Franklin and Adams and others are excited to gain the independence. Jefferson wants a great independent country where people can be free and pursue their happiness and liberty. In 1776, we're getting close. In Philly, they sat down and drafted out the Declaration of Independence. All men are created equal. And while in New York, our army is about to put everything on the line for freedom. Washington watches and waits while people in Philly are cheering and in good spirits. Washington gets one final little test to try and beat the biggest army in the world. He gets a thing called the Turtle. It fits one person. It's the first submarine. They painted it with tar. You pedal it. And they were going to sneak up on the British ships and put gunpowder and light it and blow up the British ships. Well, the first one they tried it on, they lit it. The glue didn't stick. The powder floated down the middle of the river and it blew up. It made a big spectacle. People knew something was happening, but it didn't affect the military army, and I think they ended up catching a submarine. So January 1st, they draft the Declaration of Independence, and it's delivered to Congress. And then in July 1st, they did that. On July 2nd, the matter of independence was put to a vote, and it passed on July 2nd. However, it took 2 more days to hammer out the details and get the final declaration on July 4th. And it became fact, and copies were sent out across the land on horseback. Church bells were ringing. A new free country was born. And those who signed their names had just committed treason. And if the British got them, they were going to hang. The war was about the war was no longer about just British taxes. It was about tyranny and a free people. Now the country was under the control of the British, and the Americans didn't like it, and it wasn't going to be that way for long. A statue of King George was torn down, and the lead was melted to make 42,000 bullets to shoot and fight for our independence. On July 12th at 3 p.m., the British unleashed their guns and the war had begun. 16 and 17-year-old soldiers were fighting for freedom in America. After a huge show of force with guns firing, it stopped. And the British expected the rebels to surrender because they saw the massive guns and the power that was just displayed. The British sent a letter to Washington wanting him to sit down for talks. Washington said, "We ain't talking." He didn't even open the letter. He says, "America will not consider negotiation. We do not want to talk. We want our freedom." And by gosh, we got it. Later on, the British came back, attacked Fidels. There's a lot more that went on. That's how the first revolution started. There was a lot that goes into that. Now, people are trying to say that we're in a revolutionary time right now. If you did a draft of things that have happened over the last 10, 15, 20 years, taxation without representation, growth of government, the EPA issuing hundreds of orders, writing laws, regulations, without going through Congress. Our House doesn't speak for us. The people's House does not speak for us. Our Senate doesn't speak for us. They're all politicians in it for the money. They're padding their own pocket. We have no representation. And that's why I think a revolution is coming. All right, so that's not part 3. The next one we're going to get into how I think this second revolution, if it starts, how it will start. And we'll end that there. And Smokey, you're a good little kitty out here. Usually he's kind of scared with all the fireworks, but he's being pretty good. All right, we'll end that there.